We are back at it and we're excited. Okay, now we're going through advantages of each method of sampling. We want to go through the advantages and then the disadvantages of each method of sampling. Okay, so let's just go through the definitions one more time from what we said, and then also the situations where we use it. Remember, we said that random sampling is the method of sampling where every individual in the population has an equal chance of being chosen. Okay, you have to say they have an equal chance of being chosen. It's about selection. Remember, sampling is all about selection. So it is a method of sampling where every individual in the population has an equal chance of being chosen. Okay, because you'll be following no pattern. And then for systematic sampling, we said it is a method of sampling where every kth member in the population list is selected. Okay, so some pattern is followed. So it is a method of selection where every kth member in the population list is selected. We said for that. And what is the other one? Stratified. Yes, in stratified sampling, we say that the population. You should say two things. Number one, the population is divided into subgroups called strata. Okay, not clusters, but strata. It is divided into subgroups called strata. And then you can say, and then a sample is taken randomly from each of the subgroups, right? Yeah. So it is a sample method where the population, number one, these last two, the population is divided into subgroups called strata. Then a member from each subgroup is chosen randomly. Then members are chosen randomly, or individuals or items are chosen randomly from each subgroup. Okay, items are chosen randomly from each of the subgroups. Okay, and the subgroups, we said there are subgroups that are things like age, that are things like income. There are groups that you have made. Income, like you're the one who's designing that. We said for each, let's go to the last one, then you understand. For cluster, we said, yes, the population is divided into clusters. Now, where clusters are different from subgroups is clusters meet two conditions. Number one, they are natural, and number two, they represent everything in the population. So gender is a natural group. Yes, it is male and female are already there naturally, but then they don't represent, like, if you take only boys, that's not a small part of the population, because the population should have both boys and girls, so we can't take that as a cluster. For clusters, we said we have things like regions, companies, schools, because these things represent everybody. So you can find every type of person, of individual there. So, but for clusters, we said, yes, the population is divided into clusters, but you don't choose from each cluster. No, clusters themselves are chosen randomly. So we can choose just one cluster and focus on it instead of the whole thing. Now, when do we use each of these things? When do we use stratified sampling, where we make different groups, then we make sure that we have chosen from each group? We want to make sure we have chosen from each group. In random sampling, we want to make sure that everyone has an equal chance of being chosen. In systematic sampling, we want to follow a certain pattern. And then in cluster sampling, we want to choose a certain cluster. So you make different clusters and you work on one. When do you use one? For cluster sampling, it is easy. The reason why we're going to choose a cluster and focus on one cluster or whatever is because this would be a method that we want to use for when we are dealing with large populations, and it is impossible to be able to get to everybody, to get to people from different regions. So we just say, okay, let's focus on this region. Let's say we want to focus on small businesses, whatever, in a country. You can focus on small businesses in one particular location, and that would help. Okay, so it is when you have a large population, and this helps for convenience. When you have large populations, you use cluster sampling. And then what about random sampling? Random sampling, we say that is when everybody has an equal chance, or every individual in the population has an equal chance. This is used when you don't want bias. Okay, this is used when you want fairness. Random sampling is the best at that. Then stratified sampling, where you put into subgroups and then you select individuals from every subgroups. You use it when you want to make sure that every subgroup is represented. Okay, that is when so that is already an advantage. And then systematic sampling, why we use it is the simplest. It's the simplest. So it's not that it gives us anything, but it's just the simplest. So let's go through advantages. We've kind of talked about it. We said random sampling reduces bias or no bias. Okay, it ensures that everybody is represented. Okay, it ensures representativeness. Okay, in other words, it is like a smaller version of the population. No bias. These are advantages. We're talking about advantages first. Random sampling, we know when we use it when we want fairness. So it reduces bias. Okay. Then stratified sampling, it ensures that there is representation of all subgroups. Okay. When we want not just individuals, but to make sure every subgroup is represented, we use stratified sampling. Okay. To make sure that every age group is represented. Okay. It doesn't give every individual a chance. No. And it doesn't give every individual an equal chance. No. But what it does is it makes sure that every subgroup is represented, every age group or every income level. Now, stratified sampling, it ensures, that is stratified sampling. Cluster sampling, we said it is used for large populations, okay? It is easier and cheaper for larger populations or for large populations. Systematic, it is easy to implement. That's the thing. It is the easiest. All right, good. Now, what about the disadvantages, which we never talked about? In random sampling, the disadvantage is, remember we said that for you to choose randomly, you may need the list of everybody, then start to choose from there. So it may require a complete list of the whole population, which is crazy, right? Now, stratified sampling, the big disadvantages about it is you have to know, because you're going to make groups according to the characteristics, right? So let's say you want to make groups according to people's ages, right? You want to say people that are 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30. Like, for you to be able to do that, then you're going to need to know the age of everybody in your population. So you need to know the characteristics. So it requires you to know the characteristics of every individual in the population, which is hard, which is crazy. And then what about cluster sampling? This one, these last two introduce bias, TBH, because cluster sampling only focuses on like one cluster. You choose clusters randomly, but you focus on a whole cluster. You don't go and pick from each cluster. No, you pick the cluster as it is. So it may introduce bias, okay? If the clusters are not representative, if the clusters are not, these last two are not the best when it comes to bias. These last two that we are talking about, cluster sampling and and systematic sampling, okay, these are not the best. Now, systematic sampling can introduce bias as well. How? If there is a hidden pattern in the population. For example, if let's say you arrange people and you want to ask them about the working conditions, people in a company, and then you start to take every 10th person. Maybe every 10th person is from the same department. They are all from the finance department, and the people from the finance department will probably be more likely to be getting good paychecks or whatever in that company. So that means you won't be able to know for sure because you didn't know, but every 10th member was from the same department. So if there is something hidden, let's say every 10th member just happens by chance to be from the same department, then you're not going to get fair results. So it may introduce bias, okay? In other words, misleading conclusions. That's what we're meaning. It will give you wrong conclusions. It will give you the wrong understanding. Something is always going to be wrong. That is what we mean by bias. It will give you wrong conclusions if there is a hidden pattern. So disadvantages, this one, number one, we say is you need the list of the whole population. This one, you need to understand the characteristics of your population. This one, it may introduce bias if clusters are not representative, if they don't cover everyone. Then here, systematic sampling can introduce bias if there is a hidden pattern. So here we have it. That is it for this. Goodbye.